Okay. I think I'm going live. I think it's working. Anybody's welcome to drop a note on to say that the audio is working. That would be great to know. And just as I pull myself together and get my act together here, I will confirm where we are in terms of the current position on the work I've been doing on this. Let me clear off that overlay. So first off, obviously, just as a recap, I'm using 3 books. I'm using the main Dungeon Crawl Classics role-playing game book and the section in the back mostly about monsters to create the monsters for this. Oh, thanks, Toby. That's always handy. Thanks for letting me know. I've got the monster alphabet, which is Joe Bittman and Michael Curtis created, and then the dungeon alphabet as well, which is, was that all Michael Curtis, or did he have someone else that worked with him on that? I can't remember. It just says by Michael Curtis, but both books are a method to populate a dungeon. This one's got a special leather cover. I really like the book, so I went for the leather version, which I found in the UK. So it's a bit shiny, ruins the camera view. So let me just see. I'll get rid of the logo. Great. First thing I wanted to mention is over in the corner, which I always like to sort of throw up a note about, is my Raspberry Pi. So this little thing up here is a small computer which I use, which I'm doing all the updates. I'm using Google Docs. I'm using GIMP, which is an application. They're all in there, providing the information for how I write this. So there I am. Okay, so, well, thanks again for tuning in. The first thing I want to do, which I'm trying to do at the start and at the end of these videos, is to sort of bang a big gong. You know, get ready for a loud noise. Oh, that is loud. That is loud. Keeps on ringing on, that. It does keep on ringing on. But yes, so I've got the books in front of me. I'm going to be switching to my Raspberry Pi, as I mentioned there. And again, just a note on what the Raspberry Pi is. If I switch back to the normal screen and get myself up there. Yes, so the Raspberry Pi, it's the one I've got is a little 4 GB single board computer. It's British made, and you can run Linux and a variety of other systems on there for retro gaming and things. But I'm using it here to switch to write up this adventure that I'm doing. So let's go back to just a recap on where I am on the adventure, and then I'll start to sort of dig into those books to use them for a variety of different dungeon filling tasks. So right, get my keyboard out ready, switch over to that Raspberry Pi. Just a reminder again, they're really, I think they start at about a price of about $25. They go up to about $40 depending on which model you buy. And so you can get extra little cases for them, or you can run them without a case. And I think it's a great little machine to do editing on. Free, completely free software. Linux is free, GIMP is free, and if you use the Google Docs that I do for roughing out the documentation, it works great too. And I'm not sponsored by them in any way, so there we go. And also mention out to Dungeon Crawl Classics by Goodman Games. So, you know, check out their website. Everything I'm doing on here is based on using some of their materials which they've written specifically to help with writing your own adventures, because that's all about Dungeon Crawl Classics, is sort of knocking things out that are a bit different and unusual by using the materials in the books and then changing up a few things in there as well. So right, over to the Raspberry Pi to see where I am. So the adventure which I'm writing is called Beneath the Valley of the Ultra-Knolls. A couple of weeks ago I did this map layout, and the map itself provides an overview of the terrain and dungeon. And just to give you a bit of an overview there, as I was sketching it out, I created a spot at the top here called Coburn, which is where the dwarves are based. Then I had a little village down here called Cliff's End, which is kind of a human settlement that traded with the dwarfs. They had some farmland around them. Additionally, they had, if I zoom in actually, it'll probably be a bit easier to see it up close, 200% on the map. So yeah, they had some standing stones around them, a barrow down type place but to the north, and then there was a trade route that went around the top of these falls across a river here, over to the north side of this crevasse or ravine that's in the middle here, and the massive ravine has a river running through it, and the river's called the Old Cass. And this is the focus of the adventure, is this obelisk in the centre, which is a massive giant obsidian rock that looks like either it's been, as everything else, weathered away. The sandstone of the ravine was revealed while it was there, or maybe it was placed there magically. We haven't quite got to that stage of the adventure writing yet. And additionally, what was else I was going to say about it? Yes, so basically, the premise is that the adventurers need to somehow find something out about this obelisk, and the only route down on top of it is by sort of a leap of faith of some method of getting down to the surface where there's an entrance. And that's what I started to detail out in the first level of the dungeon. So everything's just sort of quickly been knocked together. Other thing worth mentioning, in the system Dungeon Crawl Classics, they call of the dungeon master a judge, which is sort of harks back to the older OSR days of gaming. So that's why I put, if you see me mention judge or throw it up on there, that's because that's the Dungeon Crawl Classics way of calling a games master or dungeon master, of naming those things. So Scarp sees the setting. The obelisk is this giant cube-shaped block of obsidian in the middle. There was a little hint that the standing stones near the Cliff's End village are also made of the same strange dark obsidian rock as the obelisk. So there's a kind of hint at a link in there. Then I did a little village map that was using a generator. So that's all in there for Cliff's End. Cobonarch's the dwarven mine. I haven't done any detail on that at the moment. The obelisk being the large obsidian rock, and then I got stuck straight into the entranceway. So the entrance is a carved set of stairs that go down into the rock structure. There's an initial hint at the namesake of the adventure, which is these Ultra-Knolls, in that once they got into this first top level of the dungeon, the first entranceway, which is in this section 1 room, which I've detailed out below. So room 1, it's clear the entire structure is cut from the same obsidian as the outer walls. When they reach the bottom of the carved stairs, they enter an entrance hall. This is empty, although it's lined with niches, each holding the bust of a long-forgotten individual. There are 6 in total with human-like features. So kind of slight hint of Egyptian kind of thing there, with humanoids with a head of a crab, fox, cat, dog, man and a woman. And all the busts are naked in the man and woman ceremonial style. Are in there we go, straight away, so are in ceremonial style. I'm going to use the word garb, perhaps priests. I'm just noticing a few errors in there. The other thing about the obelisk, which is obviously square shaped, which is why this dungeon has a sort of a square thing going on there in terms of the layout. When they land on the top, I had made up some fauna, and I called them gull bats, a kind of mix between a bat and a gull, squawking gull. And I went into the Dungeon Crawl Classics book where they had these sort of dungeon crickets that were able to make a huge noise that they made the characters roll a stamina check to see whether they took any damage. And the more of these crickets, the more the damage was. So I've switched that, and I called it a dive bomb poop attack, basically mixing in the whole bat gull thing, that they kind of swoop down and have in addition to a normal bite, which is quite a low level attack, they have a poop attack. But I'm going to change that to, I'm going to call it, because bomb poop attack sounds a bit poor, so I was going to call it dive bomb, and I'm going to call it guano strike. So it just sort of came to me that that was a bit poor as a title. So that sort of kind of things, self-editing as I work through, really. And then I've said multiple gunouts will gather to dive bomb. What I should do there is say roll a d20 to determine the number of goldbacks that join the fight. The fight, so there we go. So I think that's covered up enough. I don't know why I put a gold dash bats there, I'll just call it one word. So otherwise I've done these stat blocks, which I'm just doing in this Google Doc here, and you know, normally stat blocks would be a lot smaller than this, but I'm just dumping it all in here because it's nice and easy for me to sort of read off and see where I am while I'm working through. So they have Dungeon Crawl Classics has a style of writing and rules and mechanics that are based on the D&D version 3 and 3.5-ish era of Dungeons & Dragons, and they use the open gaming license. So things like fortitude, reflex and will saves are straight out of that, because under the open gaming license, that's one of the things they've ported over and used. They use armor class the same. Hit dice are a bit more sort of hark back to the old school sort of way of doing things, and then move and fly, the type of attack and the bite. And then here I've got SP, which is basically special. So that's that special ability of these goldbacks. But I happen to be putting the descriptions in those at the same time of the creatures. Although I haven't really written the description, but I think goldback is an explanation enough. I could write something in there, couldn't I, just as a description? So I could say a black leathery winged small bird. Well, let's say large bird, gull-sized bird. That's an easy way to describe bird. Oh yeah, and rather than normal feathered wings, a gull bat. So leather have stretched dark skin over bony. Wings. And there's one other thing I might say, bony. One other thing I might say is that they have a feature, a distinctive. Oops, spelling. Autocorrect didn't kick in. Distinctive red beak. So why didn't I change that rather than string it striking red beak? So that gives them a bit of a description as well. And I say this is when they land down on top of that obelisk shape and start the encounter. The goldbats are kind of just disturbed on their nest. I've said a swarm of up to 20 gull nests, so that's where I've said here, roll a d20. I even say 1d20. Yep, okay, and I've changed that to bomb, dive on guano strike as their special attack. So then the level 1 map, so far I've filled in the entranceway. I've done 1A, which is a room with like a giant crab in, which I rolled up in the book, and 3A, I have in here a goddess, and the goddess, let's say room 1 is that one, as I said, with the busts in, no traps or anything. Room 1A is a pool room with a giant crab below the water surface. There is a trap in there, but there's also a plinth with a silver devil statue on it. Giant crab, which I've put on there. Giant crab, I pulled statistics for a giant beetle in the Dungeon Crawl Classics main book, but I just tweaked things slightly for them. And rather than hide in shadows, I gave them hide in shallows, so they could potentially do a surprise strike. I could probably tap in here something to do with the thief skills. So if I get the book out, so I've got them. This is the main Dungeon Crawl Classics book, and if I have a look at the thief section in here, there's probably something on what they can do when they make surprise attacks, and that might be worth adding to this crab. I'm reading. Let's switch over to have a look. So they've got sneak silently, hide in shadows, pickpocket, backstab. So I might give them the equivalent of like a backstab. The most successful thing, critical table. So again, The most successful thieves kill without their victims when attacking something from behind or when the target is otherwise unaware. So this would be a crab in the water, murky waters, hiding in the shallows. The thief receives indicated attack bonus to his attack roll. In addition, when he hits, the thief automatically achieves a critical. So what's the indicated attack bonus? Luck die, critical die, attack. Okay, can't find the indicated attack. In addition, if he hits. So I think that's just a standard indicated attack bonus that they get, so that's what they've got already. So then if they hit, so basically the crab is going to get a critical if it hits on its first strike while it's hidden under the water. So there we go, that's just something just to update on there. If the crab is hidden and the party don't make attempts to spot it, it will auto crit first hidden strike. Typically so there we go. I mean, the likelihood is they're going to be scared about this water when they go in. It's full up, it's murky water in this room 1, and they're going to take care in there. If they don't and start kind of marching through towards the silver statue in the centre of the room, there's a chance that the hidden crab is going to get them. So next up I had room 3 with Idonaea, which is a goddess. She is currently weakened, imprisoned in here. So the background was, this is the place, resting place on the gate, which I know she is lost and imprisoned, currently asleep, laying on her side in the back of the chamber in room 3A. So I gave her quite a few features as a goddess, and she's precognitive. She can regenerate because she's a god, but she's very weak at the moment. And I gave her, because she's a goddess of the kind of gateway passage to the underworld, I gave her this special ability, which is past the pearly gates. So you can snatch a spirit before it dies, and then that form of the dead target will follow her as a kind of bobbing witch light beside her. She can then burn that off to turn into additional bolts of blue fire, because once per day she has this, well, three times a day she has bolts of blue fire she can fire out from her eyes. Which brings me on to her appearance, which is at the moment, she's slowly disappearing, and only her eyeballs on stalks, her brain and vascular system are visible in the general form of a 7-foot-tall humanoid. After thousands of years trapped in the obelisk, she is, I've said thousands, I haven't quite worked on that yet, could be 1,000 or could be a couple of hundred years. She's beginning to fade due to her followers believing she has died. In this current state she is weak, however she's seeking followers because enough people believing her to get her strength back. So really the idea here is they might end up fighting her if they want to, and I think I might put a chest in the room. So that's a good start for this 3A, is to put an additional chest in here. So I've said possible add a magic item near her on her person. So if I say magic item, chest in room beside the sleeping form of Idonaea. So opportunity straight away. Does the thief want to, or someone move silently in there to just not deal with this strange vascular mess that's on the floor? I'd rather like, actually, in terms of my description of it, I've said vascular system. So I shall add to that and say her beating heart can be seen in her chest. Right, so that's just another little hint. And again, someone with if a warrior did want to attack her, they might want to do a mighty deed and see if they can strike that heart directly or something. Anyway, chest in the room. Let's find out what's in the chest. Let's have a look now at the Dungeon Alphabet. So the shiny book from Michael Curtis, and there is a section on chests. So it'll be under C for chests. He asks himself, No. Where did I see chests if it's not under C for chests? Crypts, caves, battles. Ah, it's T for treasure chests. Page 65. I'm getting familiar with this book. I will not forget that it's that for treasure chests in the future. 65. I have marked them, so it's going to be in one of these sections. Rare and unusual treasure chests. Here we go. So basically this is a D12 roll to see which one of those. Oh, 2D12. So I shall roll 2D12. So let's have a close-up of the roll. 3 plus 3, 6. I guess that's average. That's not too bad. No, it's far below average. It's terrible. Anyway, I've got a 6. Magically animated and will either fight or flee the party when approached. Special command word negates the animation, allowing the chest to be pilfered more easily. So, okay, so this is along the lines of the animated chests, either the kind of mimic style D&D one, or looking back to the sort of Colour of Magic books, the one with the many legs. So it's a magic animated chest, and it moves. So I'm going to say that it moves somehow on wheels or something. I'll think about that as I switch back to write it up. So shall I make it intelligent? I will. I'm going to roll on my names table and just give it a name as well. So this has 100 different names. Let's have a look. So this is just my own table that I use to build up names. So I've rolled 68, and 68 is Pawn Pip as a male name, or Eva. As a surname, it's Badger. There's one up here, Corky or Yolt. I'm going to call it Yolt, actually. The chest is called Yolt. It will respond to commands from Iona, Idonia even. Are made. Let's go. This appearance is very old and worn, with brass bands. A simple pair of keyholes. And so yes, I'm going to say it. When it starts to move, it uses clawed crow-like feet to each corner of the chest. Around. So that's a good start. And what we're going to put inside there, so I'm going to put in a couple of things which I'll roll out the Dungeon Crawl Classics book now. So back again, just to have a look at there's a magic table in here, which I actually did look up earlier on to see it. Undead varieties, subhumans. It must be way back there. No, that's not it. So men and berserkers, cave crickets from the other day. I think it's just before this section, yeah. Magic items. So wands, rods and rings. Let's put a sword in there. Let's put a significant sword in there. Just for fun. So I'm going to roll on the table again here. Drop my dice on the floor. Luckily I've got my D100, so I don't have to like complete scatter away. 43. So, okay. Doesn't have any communication. Number of Banes, none. I want something a bit more significant than that. Something funny. 18. 93, that's going to be hideous. Oh dear. No, I'm just going to pick one. I'm going to pick one. I'm going to say in the 76 to 85. It's got a +1. Intelligence of 3d4. So let's roll that up. So there's my d4. 1, 1, 3. So it's got 5 intelligence. It's got simple urges, and it's got 1d3 minus 1 Banes. I'm just going to go for 1 Bane. Dice roll for special purposes. So it's got 1 Bane. So let's roll on the Bane table then. 34. So wizards. Berserker Fury when facing Bane. Ego check or wield against +4 strength stamina for 2d6 round, then he's exhausted at -4 strength stamina for 1d6 turns thereafter. So each Bane, roll twice on this table, once to determine the type of Bane and second to determine the effect. Okay, so the first one is that we'll say the type of Bane is against wizards, and the effect when battling their Bane is a 78. That sounds like it's going to be good. Summoning. Okay, that's quite significant. When battling Bane, sword can summon reinforcements which are creature type antithetical to the Bane per judge's discretion. Of total hit dice equal to half of the wielder. Sword can summon once per day with 50% chance of success for a duration of 1d4 rounds. So it's a Bane against wizards, and it's summoning, and it's a sword. And I did see that it needed dice roll for special purposes would be a d6. I got a 6 there. So I haven't said whether it's lawful evil or what it is yet. Let's roll on that check as well. D100. So I know I've got 6 on that special purposes table, and I'll just check the alignment of it, which is a D100 again. 72. So it's lawful. Better be writing these down, otherwise I'll forget when I jump to the other screen. So lawful. It's got 5 intelligence. It's a +1 to hit. I'm assuming that's +1 to damage and hit. And 75% of a 1 type 1 power. Let's see if it's got a type 1 power under 75. No, it doesn't. Although I could make it that if I wanted to, but I won't. And it's got 1 Bane, which we've said is wizards, and it's summoning. And then we're going to roll on the special purpose for a lawful. D16. Tries to find my D16, and that's probably the one that fell on the floor. That's my D16. 8. Defend against the incursion of chaos. Okay. And really, it's just what kind of weapon it is, but I'm going to make it a longsword. I'm going to make it a longsword. Or a greatsword. I'm going to make it a longsword, rather than roll on that table. And then name-wise, let's have a look at a name. Let's have a look at the... let's go back again to the Raspberry Pi and check a name out. So I'll go over to my section on names. I'll look for some interesting descriptors over here. Zoom into this a bit because it's like impossible to see, but then it gets a little bit difficult to navigate when I'm in there. So I've got Balefin in there twice, that's rubbish. So let's have a look. I just saw the word mortifying, so I think I'm going to call it the Mortifier as a weapon. Let's do that just randomly. So let's type it up. I found the dice. I'll just get that dice. Longsword. The mortifier. Yeah. 5 intelligence. I'll just write it up roughly this time because I don't want to spend ages just in typing things up. 5 intelligence. Lawful. +1 attack. I'm sure it's attack and damage. A4 against wizards. Can summon. I'll call them minions. Combat encounter. So there we go. So basically, just very quickly, made the mortifier. It's a longsword, it's got some intelligence, it's lawful, it's +1 attacking damage, it's baleful against wizards, can summon minions to support the wielder once per day. You know, and personality wise, I could say, I'll call it a cocky dictator. Is always wanting to advise tactical moves for any creatures it summons. So it's going to be, you know, maybe shouting back at the wielder and saying, "Hey, look, move that guy. Tell that guy to go and fight them." So if I say communication-wise, urges, it says. That's it. That's what it has. It has urges. Okay, so it will impress an urge on the wielder to suggest a specific move for the summoned monsters, or whatever we decide. Haven't decided what it will summon yet. I can work on that yet. No. To be confirmed. There was that one other thing I had in there that it had on the, which I completely forgot before I didn't write it down, to do with what it would then wish to fight. So we said it would defend against the incursion of chaos. Put that back up in its kind of stat block there. So that's the weapon done. Now I just need to sketch out a drawing for it. I'm not going to do that now though. I'm going to continue on with the dungeon rooms. Right, so let's go up to the next room I want to do. So I shall do room 2, and I shall roll on the dungeon alphabet for that. Fires up the book again. So if I remember correctly, I had a room section in here. So themes, creepy crypts. So maybe I could make this a crypt room. Let's have a look what we've got on here. Switch back. Crypts, doors, echoes, entrances, hallways. R is for rooms. Well, let's just see what comes up if I go directly onto page 54 for the rooms. I've got it. There's a lot of subtables on here, interestingly. Random rooms and chancy chambers. And then you've got random original purpose rooms. Okay. We'll go for this one, which is a D20. Maybe that's what fell on the floor, my D20. I'm going to have to grab another one. Oh no, it wasn't. It's right there. Six. So, the Tesseract. The room is 4-dimensional hypercube. I'm not really looking for that yet. It's a little bit way out there. That could come later, maybe. Oh, so it's designed to be habitable environmental room by examples are a fire room, ice room, water room, vacuum chamber, vacuum chambers to suck them in. An ice room would be interesting, or a fire room. Yeah, I'm going to go with that. I'm going to say that it's some sort of furnace engineering room or something, or so I'll switch back and I'll just say that. So room 2. So this room has with occasional bursts of flame that that rise. Metal grill. It is otherwise selection of weapons and a metal frame. At the south end of the room. So that should let me just be Control B, yeah. Bronze spear, hand axe, shield, and 2 throwing daggers. They're all ancient, however the bronze materials have prevented corrosion. Don't know how to spell corrosion straight off, that's terrible. So additionally then we've got something in the center of the room, so in the center is a boiler. I call it furnace, that sounds better. Furnace-like contraction. Adaption. A wire nest. flames from the floor. On the furnace and on top. And on top of the on top of the confused wire mesh is a black egg. There we go, randomly came up with that. And then I'll say something like this egg. This egg was a companion dragon to be hatched for Idenia, the goddess, before she was held captive in here. And I will say that the dragon is now stillborn and undead within the egg, and may attempt to latch onto a player. It cracks open. Player as a parent. So just some quick, I think basically if players attempt to cross the room, they are required would it be stamina or reflex, because they're kind of dodging the flames? Let's go for reflex, or actually agility. So it's agility of DC 15, so quite tricky to avoid the flames. So then I'll say one roll is required to retrieve the egg, and one roll is required per weapon to reach the rack and return to the door. This is the safety of the door. So it's quite a dangerous room, but it's, you know, there's nothing physically after them. It's just, and also it's kind of an exposed trap, isn't it? As in the sense that they can see the risk before them. So that's it, room 2. This room is a metal grill on the floor, for a floor with a blackened, let's call it a blackened, metal grill for the floor with occasional bursts of flame that rise up from beneath the grill. Don't need to say metal grill again. It is otherwise filled with a selection of weapons lined up on a metal frame at the south wall of the room. Weapons include a bronze spear, hand axe, a shield, and 2 throwing daggers. They are all ancient, however the bronze material is used. Just say something likely to blunt after 4 weeks of use. Just so they're not perfect, but they're slightly interesting, archaically interesting bronze weapons. In the centre of the room is a furnace-like contraption with a wire nest under the flames from the floor are sucked up toward this red hot furnace, and on top of the confused wire Mess is a black egg, say, wreathed in flame. The egg was a companion dragon to be hatched for Idonea, the goddess, before she was held captive, and within the oblex. The dragon is now stillborn undead with the egg mating. So I can follow up on that later, but basically they may end up with a kind of a pet dragon, but it's an undead one that potentially may not even grow, so maybe that's a kind of a quirk. So if the players attempt to cross the room, they are required to make a stamina agility check of DC 15 to avoid the flames. One roll is required to retrieve the egg, and one is required per weapon to reach the rack and return to the safety of the door. So let's have a look again at room 2 in terms of other exits off there. So I'll say that to actually get to either of these other exits will also require a single test, just to say. Okay, so that's a slightly unusual room, bit of a test and potential link into something unusual if they pick up that dragon egg and decide to use it. So over here we've got C3 and 4. So if I detail C2 and C1, just get those out of the way as corridors. I've gone too far, I've gone too far. So corridors. So both corridors. Door on the walls. On the floor. Small sizes on the wall. Torches that can be lit. Carried by the players. Back up to the map again. So I didn't want to put anything in particular in there. They're just corridors. I don't need to detail those. I've detailed 1A. So I've got rooms 5 and 6 at this end, or I've got the rooms down here. Where are we? C3 and 4. So I'll go with 5 and 6 before I do the secret room. I think I'm going to do this. The secret room is going to be the way down to the next floor, and that's why they need to contact or talk to Idonea here. Also, this randomly generated map that I got had 2 keys, so both of these rooms have keys in. So they could be either, because I've said there's 2 keys, they could be the 2 keys to open up the chest that is that animated chest that's with Idonea here in 3A, or they could be 2 keys to open up a secret passageway on C2. So I will say at the south end of C2 there is a secret door. has 2 hidden key slots. Skull keys to open from rooms 4 and 5. Without the keys. Poison trap, I call it. Acrid. Pink. Gas. So, kind of poison. Let's have a look on the dungeon alphabet. There must be a section in here for poison to see what that pink thing does. Potions, pools. There's no poisons. Potions. Maybe I could use something in the monster alphabet that has sort of poison abilities of the blood of creatures or something, and then match that. There's probably just the psionic. Breath weapon, flame, gas, horde, infernal. Unexpected vampire, weird, yuck, zombie, noxious. I'm going to use the noxious on page 48 of this. Let's have a look. So I'm back into the monster alphabet. I'm going to use the noxious page to describe somehow something to do with what this gas does, even though it's meant to be something to do with the creatures. Okay, so there we go. We'll roll 2d5. 2d5. So this is again the funky dice that come with Dungeon Crawl Classics. Just throw up again the a reminder that this is a Dungeon Crawl Classics attempt to use their books and materials to fill a dungeon and adventure that I'm doing. And the rule set themselves, Dungeon Crawl Classics, uses what's called funky dice. So that's why I've got some very large dice on D30s. And then unusual like D7s they've got in here, and D5s. So they try and make good use of this dice set. So a 5 and a 4, so I've got a 9 there, which says every round spent in this beast's consumptive aura holds a chance of contracting a contagious disease. I might see. Okay. Let's have a look at 8. So this is, with a spluttering hiss, the monster lurches a volley of frothy spittle. And then you roll a d8 to see what that actually does to the characters. So let's use what that is on there, on another d8. So 6. 4, 5, 6 sleep. Oh, well, look at that. All of that to decide that trap is a sleep trap. It kind of works. It kind of fills in with something else I've got in there. And it's not too dangerous as well either, is it? You know, you don't always want something absolutely deadly at this early stage. So, the pink gas. Anyone within 20 foot of the secret door, and that fails. A stamina. It's not a stamina, it's a fortitude save. Of DC, I'm going to say D15, let's say 14. 13. So it's not too hard a trap. It's been there a long time. So any player that sleeps will dream sun, burning their skin. They will awake with a slight orange tan to the face. So essentially the pink gas pulls out if they fail. So let's do the difficulty of the trap. So opening the secret, opening secret door. No, let's do it finding first. So finding the secret door requires a search DC. So it's going to be quite hard to spot. Now we'll kind of call it a DC 14 to spot. Once found, without the 2 skull. This is where I'm just going to check the thief again, just in case the thief has like a lockpick type skill or something, because then I can just build it around whatever the lockpick would normally be for the thief. So pickpocket, pick lock. Mundane lock is DC 10, extremely well crafted lock is DC 20, legendary DC 25. So I'm just going to say the lock is a DC. I'm not going to make it too hard again. So I'm going to say DC 12. Avoid the gas erupting into the passage. Yeah, so anybody can crowbar bar it. I'm going to up that. I'm going to say it's 15 too. Done. So that's the corridor done. Then we'll do the next room on there. I need some way to fire this map up so I don't have to scroll up 16 pages every time. So, right, so that was the secret trap, secret entranceway there at the south end of C2 to find this passageway through, which is going to be the descent to the second level and the final level of the obelisk as a dungeon, because I'm only going to do detailed 2 levels in there. So I'm going to do 5 and 6 now, and I go straight back up to the dungeon book and have a look what Michael Curtis has got for me in there. So let's have a look. C is for caves. Let's go to the rooms one. It should be R for rooms. 54. So I'm going to just take these. I'm going to try and roll with it instead of, as I usually do, seeing something slightly more interesting on the page that I prefer. Let's see, it's a D20. 13 is a, let's have a look what 13 is. A spell amplifier. Spells cast whilst in this room produce the maximum effect. So let's roll here actually. So basically I'll find out the function of the room first. So quite like the idea of using a spell amplifier in there, but let's see what the actual room is. 96. So it's a utility, subtable 1, or I. And it's got a D12 on there. Eight. It's a meeting chamber. So that's going to be room 5, meeting chamber. Let me write my notes up, otherwise I'm going to lose track again. So room 5. Meeting chamber. And room 6, let's have a look again on the D100. So 45. It's going to be a general on E, general purpose room, and this is a D20. 17. It's storage. Okay, nice and simple. I like that. 2 simple, purposeful rooms for this area. A meeting chamber and a storage room. It has this random rooms and chancy chambers. These are like really clever type things that he's put together, you know, so things like siphon room, draining health, memorize spells, so they're really like a tough, dangerous room. But I will see now what I'm going to encounter in there. So let's have a look at, I don't know, idea of omens. Let's see if there's going to be an omen in there. Yes, let's roll on this. It's a D12. A 9. The party torches behave strangely, throwing their flames in a direction against the draft or changing the strength of their brightness. The flames either guide the party towards beneficial discovery or warn them against danger through careful observation of the flames. So there's a key in this room. The flames are going to steer them towards it. So it's going to be a helpful room. But maybe I need to put some creature in there as well. But it's going to say, okay, so first of all, write that note down. Flames will guide them to the key in room 5, the meeting room, which will have a few desks and things in there, a table in the centre, guide them to a key. And in fact, I'm going to put the key in an old loaf of bread on the table. So they will see the loaf, and for some weird reason their torches are going to guide them towards the loaf. In the meantime, there will maybe be some old bodies, a couple of them maybe sat in the chairs around the table. And let's work out what they are. So this is a dusty old temple, so it's bound to have some undead somewhere in it. Let's have a look for their undead section on here. 67. Let's randomly roll. It's probably going to be something hideous. Undead, page 67. Let's see what happens with this. So it's 2d8 this time. They really don't let you sort of stick to one dice type on here. 1 and 7, 8. Zombies and skeletons infested with giant centipedes, boarworm, and other vermin. That's interesting then, isn't it? So it's like, so I'm going to need to come up with like a skeleton that has, also has some like vermin attacks. So skeleton verminites or something. Just made that up. Write that down. And then for the other room, so that's room 5, so room 6, let's roll on rooms again and just see. I know what type of room it is, but let's try and discover what it is. So we know it's a storage room, so what are they storing in there? Well, maybe the stuff in there has gone weird. Vegetation, maybe some vegetation's grown out of storage. Why not? 72, let's see what comes up with that. So maybe they've stored grain or something in there, and the weird chaos or something that's happened. Oh, actually, first of all, I'll pick the kind of vermin. Let's do that on the vermin table. So that's the kind of vermin that's infesting the skeletons in the first meeting room. 7 fire beetles. So that ties in again with their torches are drawing them towards this weird loaf of bread on the table where the skull key is. But there's fire beetles again, and again that ties in with the theme of the fire with the other room that I did with the dragon in it, the dragon's egg. The herd is tended by bands of beetle pokes who guard their herd against the rustlers. So it says large herd of fire beetles. So I'm going to make these small fire beetles that are inside the skeleton's body, kind of like wreathing up and down to give the skeleton a kind of fire flame attack with its small host of, because it's acting as a host to its little plague of fiery fire beetles that spit out fire from their rear ends. That's what it's going to be. So fire beetles are going to be the type of vermin, small ones. I could call them jade fire beetles, like that. Right, so then the vegetation in the storage room, just to keep this going. I need a D14, another one of the interesting dice from the Goodman Games range. Just again, I'd just like to sort of throw that up in case you dive in at a different time. I'm using the Goodman Games books to generate and populate a dungeon as well as an adventure. And this book is called the Dungeon Alphabet by Michael Curtis. And I just rolled a 7 on the 14 Funky Flowers and Plants table. And let's have a look what that does for me. So, the herald of an alien invasion, a race from another planet or dimension, and invading the PC's homeworld and using the plant as a scout to gather intelligence. The invaders can hear and see activity around the plant and may decide. So I'm going to use that, and I'm going to say there's some sort of plant in here that the other inhabitants that are in the next layer down of the dungeon, which are these Ultra-Knolls, are able to view things here like a scrying through the kind of plant and vegetation in this room. So don't ask me what they look like, but I will say that there's some kind of weeds growing out of the barrels of the storage room that have kind of like strange crystal-like flowers. That will do. Done. Let's go back and write that up. So I've got 2 rooms to do. I've got room 6 and I've got room 5 here, which I've just now detailed. One of them's got the threat of the skeletons in it, which is the room 6, which has a large table. And room 5 has another one tucked in some debris. So both of these rooms have the skull keys, which they need to get through the other room. I'll just start writing those rooms up. Go down. So it looks like I'm going to need to sort of design a skeleton with these fire beetles in its chest to make those extra attacks that are going to rise up from the table. Gone too far, I've gone too far. So that was all about that's all room 3, isn't it? Really, I should do it after there, but I'm just going to start typing it here. Why have I got opening there? Right, so room 5. I will resequence this offline. So as we know, room 5 is going to be a meeting room. Which with 4 skeletal and this is a large stone table. Some food remains. On wooden plates. So when entering the room, the party's torches are oddly drawn toward the center table, as if invisible thread. You can notice this through experimentation or an intelligence check. It's not a difficult one. If the table, the 4 skeletal figures will rise and fight to defend the room. Back out. So they only want to fight, so I'd say something along the lines of they won't attempt to follow. Except to defend themselves. Dinner. Right, so I'm going to do room 5, room 6, and just write that up before I get the skeletons, and then I think I'm going to do the skeletons as the sort of last thing I do in this session, and base them on some skeletons in the main Dungeon Crawl Classics book, and then just sort of just boost them up a bit to make them interesting with these weird fire beetles that fight inside their chest cavities. So room 6 is a large room and dusty half-broken barrels. And 2 of the 5 barrels in the room verdant green weeds. Close inspection, they have dropping flowers, drooping flowers. So I'm going to say something like a wizard. What kind of check am I going to make the wizard make? Let's have a look. I'm thinking about some kind of spell check or something to determine. And I remember looking back, to another adventure, which is one written by Joseph Goodman himself, The Portal Under the Stars. And in this adventure, he had a room where there was a scrying chamber, and the DC, the powerful we can use portals to see faraway places. So there was a DC 25 spell check to do that. I'm going to say, just going to say a wizard. A DC 20 spell check. And we'll be able to scry to a chamber beneath this floor in the oblex. Able to see a set of 20, a group, 20 large humanoids with various heads. Knollish, I'm going to say knollish heads, knoll-like heads. Sat in a circle in prayer to a ball of light about troll head. I was going to say basketball, but yeah, that's not really very fantasy, is it? So that's the first vision of the Ultra-Knolls that are in the next layer down, that are either followers of Idonea, or maybe they're trapped as well, or maybe they're under some kind of control. That will be determined when I do the next level down. And what else can they find in here? So we could say there's some stale old cheese. There's 1 barrel containing stale old cheese, that through thousands of years of aging in perfect conditions is now magically imbued. And will I need to I was going to say track by sense of smell, something to do with that pongy old cheese or something. We'll go temporary. I'm going to say a temporary 1d6 hit points or something. I'm going to work on that later. So I need to determine, to be confirmed, the result of eating the ancient cheese of the Obelix. Okay, so that's that room sorted out. Room 6, just the right seating correction there. Room 5, the large dusty meeting room. So this is where I need these skeletons, and this will be the last thing I sort of put together here today. So go back to the desktop and pull out the Dungeon Crawl Classics book, and we'll skip to the bits about undead and skeletons. I think there was a nice table in here about rolling unusual undead, so that ties into my sort of fire beetle thing already there. Oh look, I can see zombie at the back. Troll or vombis zombie. Let's go to this unusual undead table. I can't remember where it was, but gargoyle, ghost, extra dimensional. Come on, let's find this bit. I should have marked this one out. That must be at the front of the, you know, undead's got a U, starts with a U, it must be right at the front. He says ironically. That's treasure. Undead, here we go. What's that? Oh, that's a crit table for the undead, that's not going to help me. Variety in undead. I'd even mark the page, and so physical appearance of undead. So we know it's a skeleton. Traits or properties. So let's see what happens on the traits or properties D20, just to sort of give them a bit of flavour. Let's go for it. 1. Energy draining touch, ability score, will, save, resists. Let's try have another look at another one. May go with that. 8. Transformation. Well, we've already got the beetles in their chest. Slow, 1 action every 2 rounds. I'm going to go with the energy draining touch, and we'll have that energy drain from maybe the spitting beetles. So let's have a look at what we've got underneath the normal. So straight away under giant beetle, I can see that they have a spitting option, which will spit acid. So I could just make that, you know, there'll be a group of these tiny fire beetles all in the chest of the skeleton as sort of writhing around in there, so the players will be able to see that. And as a group, maybe they make a spit attack at +3. So that's nice and quick. I'll use the spitting beetle, which is a +3 attack, does 1d6 points. And we'll call it 1d6 of fire damage. And then we'll give the skeletons a sort of a claw attack. So with a drain ability as well. So these guys are quite boosted. 4 of them in here. So all I need to do is find the normal skeleton. Skeleton here. So they have a whole load of extra interesting things for them, but I'm just really here for the stat block. And we've got like, here we go, carrier of grave rot, cursed before it reanimated. So we know that they have these fire jade beetles inside their chests. And then we'll just use the stat block from there, and I'll write that up. And as I write up, you can see that happening. So go back to the Raspberry Pi. And then just see what I can fire up. So, right, skeleton. So I need the stat block from there. this big fat book in my way. I'm going to have to reorganise myself so I can see how to more readily move things around. Right, so giant crab. I'm going to use the stat block from there and then plug in the skeleton details into room 5. Pop sticks it in there. And I'm going to call it, I'm going to call them jade bones to be a bit different, because so they don't look like normal skeletons. And because they've got the jade beetles in their chests, I'll say they've gone green with some sort of ancient algae as well. So they'll be called jade bones. And now I just need to type in the stat block from the skeleton. So it's got initiative +0. So I'll tell you what, I can put the keyboard up on the book. It provides a flattening ability against the book and also allows me to type what I see in there. Right, sorted. Initiative they've got is +0. Again, I'm just taking the stats right from the book here, but obviously I'm varying them up. Alignment chaotic. They're going to have 1d20 action dice, which is normal. They're going to have an AC of, I'll take the standard AC that they've got in here, which is only a 9, so they're very easy to whack. Hit dice is just 1d6, so again they're really simple. So I think I'm going to up the 4 to something like 8 around the table, given that they're so... Although again they do have the extra spit. I'll see how it works out. Movement is correct. Special, they're undead, half damage from piercing and slashing. So I'll just take all that out there. Undead. Half damage from piercing. And then jade, fire, beetles in chest cavity. Can spit fire each round and say the skeleton aim the beetles or make its melee attack. So let's see, what else have they got? They've got Fortitude 0, Reflex 0, Will 0, so there's nothing in there. I don't need that. I do need their base attack, which is an attack of +0. Again, they're rubbish. So we'll need a few more of them in there, I think, for their normal attack, because they're never going to do that one. And the melee is 1d3 damage, so half a d6. I'm going to say that each round the skeleton and the fire beetles and the beetles can make an attack. Just to make them a little bit more powerful. And then I will write over here that it's so fire spit, and that is going to be a +3, so they're going to be doing that more often, and that is 1d6. So ranged, and I'll just say 30 foot for that spit. So that's it. They're going to get 2 attacks. Oh, they was going to have a drain as well. So actually that does make them rather tough. Yeah, it's like a necromantic touch. So I'll make that strength. So any creature touched by the skeleton loses 1d6. So any successful attack so that will recover that strength, like strength recovers for a wizard that burns its statistics. So, so that's it. We have the jade bones, which have in the chest cavity. So jade fire beetles in the chest, so I call them small, and I'll say dozens of, so it sounds like there's a lot of them swarming in there. Can spit fire each round. The skeleton and the beetles can make an attack at the same on the same initiative. I could also say once killed. The jade beetles disperse and find cracks and holes in the floor to escape. So that's it. The jade bones was the last thing I was going to do. So as a recap, just to remind again, I'm doing an adventure for Dungeon Crawl Classics, which I'm writing. I'm using the books, the Dungeon Alphabet and the Monster Alphabet, and also the main Dungeon Crawl Classics book, which has everything in there you need for creatures, etc. And I'm just building out this map. The map itself is a Scarpsea, which I've just brought up there, which is the original map that I drew online, so you can watch me do that if you go back, and I'll put a link somewhere on this video back to that one so you can see me drawing that and talking about the original adventure, and the obelisk in the center there, which is what we're currently filling out room by room using the various books. And I'm kind of being inspired by what I see in the Dungeon Crawls Classics Goodman Games books, plus my own ideas I'm throwing into there to sort of populate this. So that has been 1 hour and 40 minutes doing this, so if you've stayed the course, that's amazing. What I will do at the end, which is typical, is just to bang the gong to say I've finished. I'm going to do it again. That's great doing that. And then say thank you very much. I'm now turning off. I'll see if I can come back up to me just to my face and say goodbye. So yes, thanks for listening in. It's been great having anybody along. I think someone said hello earlier, but it's just great to know that the audio was working. And yeah, come back again. If you like this kind of thing, let me know, because I can keep on doing it. So cheers for that. And